Our hospital map skipped from Wing C to Wing E. Everyone joked about it during orientation. Bad renovation planning, county funding, some architect with more confidence than measuring tape. There was no Wing D, no department code for it, no nurses assigned to it, no emergency route through it, no beds, no rooms, no oxygen lines, no cameras. At 1:13, on my 4th month working overnight security, Elevator 4 opened anyway. The display above the doors read D, and standing inside the elevator was a visitor badge with my name printed on it. The date on the badge was tomorrow. My name is Marcus Vale. I worked overnight security at Bellwether Regional for 4 months and 12 days, which was long enough to learn that hospitals don't really sleep. They get quieter. That's different. After midnight, the public parts go soft, the lobby lights dim, the cafeteria gates come down, the gift shop turns into a dark glass box full of balloons and plastic flowers. The front desk switches from 3 people to 1 person who looks like they've been awake since the county was founded. But the building keeps moving. Elevators breathe. Automatic doors open for no one. Vending machines hum to themselves. Call lights blink at the ends of hallways like small red thoughts. Somewhere, a printer starts, runs 2 pages, and stops before you can decide if it matters. Security hears it all. That was the job, mostly. We didn't chase movie criminals through operating rooms. We walked floors, unlocked supply rooms, escorted nurses to their cars, checked doors that should have been locked, and checked doors that shouldn't have been locked, and wrote reports that made strange things sound boring. In security, you learn the difference between a locked door and a door nobody wants opened. Bellwether Regional was an ugly hospital, not old enough to be beautiful and not new enough to be efficient. It had been expanded in pieces for 30 years, 1 grant and 1 county promise at a time. Wing A was the original building. Wing B was outpatient. Wing C was medical surgical. Wing E was telemetry and step down. The emergency department sat on the east side like someone had glued a different building to the first one and hoped paint would solve the problem. There was no Wing D. You could not miss the absence. It was on every wall map. The colored diagram went A, B, C, E. During orientation, one of the older guards, Dennis, tapped the map with his radio and said, "If you find Wing D, clock out and go home." Everyone laughed, because he had the kind of voice that made everything sound like a joke. He had already survived. The official explanation was renovation planning. Years earlier, a transitional care unit had been proposed between Wing C and Wing E. Funding changed, contractors changed, the county board changed. The plans got revised, then revised again, and Wing D became one of those local institutional jokes people used when they're too tired to complain about real problems. Lost patient chart? Send it to Wing D. Broken wheelchair? Parked it in Wing D. Manager asking for room that didn't exist? Tell them that Wing D had plenty of beds. The joke worked because the building made it plausible. There were odd blank walls where corridors should have continued. There were doors with old badge readers mounted beside drywall. There was 1 elevator, Elevator 4 that sat between the C and E corridors and sometimes stopped on floors no one had selected. Maintenance said Elevator 4 was temperamental. Security said Elevator 4 was old. Nurses said worse things when they thought administration wasn't listening. My shift started at 11 p.m. on Tuesday. Nothing about the night felt special. I signed out a radio, checked the keys, clipped my badge to my jacket, and did the first route. Front entrance, locked. South stairwell, clear. Pharmacy corridor, badge reader working. Wing C, medication room, door secured. Wing E, family waiting area. One man asleep under a vending machine, reflection with his shoes off. At 12:42, I walked past elevator 4 and watched the display flicker from C to E, even though the elevator did not move. I made a note to tell maintenance, because that was what you did with old buildings. You translated unease into a ticket number. At 1:08, I was sitting in the security office drinking coffee that tasted like hot change when dispatch called over the radio. Security, respond to patient fall alarm, D214. I stared at the radio for a second. Dispatch, repeat it. Security patient fall alarm, D214. Response pending. Our dispatcher that night was Nia, and Nia did not joke on the radio. She treated the radio like a courtroom microphone. I picked up mine. Dispatch. Confirm location. There was a pause. System shows D214. There is no D-wing. Another pause. Longer. Stand by. I waited, watching the little red second hand on the security office clock slide toward the bottom of the hour. The camera wall showed the usual empty places: ambulance bay, main lobby, west stairwell, corridor outside wing C, elevator 4 lobby. Nothing moved. Then Nia came back on. Security. Check with wing C. Alarm may be misassigned. That made sense. It was a system error. A bad room mapping in the patient monitoring software. Wrong department code. Something that would become a ticket. A sigh. And 3 emails. I took the C corridor. Wing C at night had a specific sound. Fluorescent hum, distant oxygen, rubber soles, soft call bells, muted televisions behind half-closed doors. The floor always smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee burned down to its last warning. Tessa Nuri was at the nurse's station with a red pen behind one ear and a paper cup of soup she had clearly forgotten was there. Tessa had been a charge nurse on nights for 9 years. She was the kind of tired that did not slow her down. It only made her more accurate. She looked up when she saw me. If you're here about the bed alarm, it wasn't ours. I didn't say bed alarm. You have that face. What face? The hospital is doing something stupid, and security has to pretend it's a mystery. I leaned on the counter. Dispatch got a fall alarm from D214. Tessa stopped writing. Then she looked toward the wall map beside the medication room, where C ended and E began, with nothing between them but a thick white line. D214, she said. That mean anything to you? Only that if you find it, tell them they owe us 2 nurses and a working blanket warmer. I smiled because she did, but neither of us held it long. She checked her station screen. No fall alarm. No D214. No patient assigned to anything between C and E. She turned the monitor slightly so I could see it. System error? She said. Probably. I looked down the hall toward elevator 4. At the far end of wing C, the elevator chimed. Not the bright tone most elevators make. Elevator 4 had an old, tired bell, a soft metallic ding that sounded like it had traveled up through several floors of pipe. Tessa heard it too. The doors opened. No one stepped out. From where we stood, I could see the panel above the elevator doors. Usually it showed C, E, or a flickering blank. Now it showed D. Tessa set her pen down. Tell me that says B, she said. It doesn't. I walked toward it before I could talk myself out of it. Tessa followed. Not close enough to admit she was following, but close enough that I could hear her shoes. The badge reader inside the elevator gave one soft chirp when she crossed the threshold, even though she had not touched her badge to it. The elevator was empty. Inside, the floor panel had changed. B, C, D, E. D was a small, square button between C and E, lit with a red ring as if someone had pressed it from the inside. I had ridden that elevator twice earlier in the night. There had been no D button. There had never been a D button. I took one step into the elevator. Tessa said, "Marcus?" I turned. She was looking at the rear wall of the elevator. A visitor badge hung from the emergency phone hook by its clip. It was one of those peel-off badges the front desk kiosk printed for family members and vendors. White thermal paper, black text, barcode at the bottom. Name, Marcus Vale. Destination, Wing D. Visit reason, follow-up. Date, Wednesday. That was tomorrow. The elevator door began to close. I put my hand out to stop them. The rubber edges pressed my palms and slid open again. My radio clicked once. A voice said, "Security to D214, patient fall. Response pending." It was my voice. Not like a recording playing over a bad speaker. Not exactly. It was flatter, tired, but it was mine. Tessa heard it too. I know she heard it because she reached for the visitor badge before I did, and then stopped herself. "Don't touch that," she said. I should have listened. Instead, I took the badge off the hook. The paper was warm. The D button was still lit. I pressed C first. Nothing happened. I pressed E. Nothing happened. Then, because fear sometimes looks exactly like doing your job, I pressed D. The door closed. The elevator did not go up. It did not go down. At least it didn't feel like it did. There was no lurch, no cable movement, no change in pressure. The overhead light flickered twice. The floor indicator stayed on D. Then the doors opened onto a hallway that could not fit in Bellwether Regional. It was not a ruin. That was the first thing that made it worse. Wing D looked clean. The walls were painted the same dull off-white as Wing C. The floor had the same polished shine. The same kind of handrails ran under the same kind of framed patient rights posters. A nurse's station sat 20 feet ahead, its monitors awake, its chairs empty. But the air was wrong. Hospitals always have layered sound. Somewhere, somebody coughs. Somebody rolls a cart. Somebody calls for help or laughs at something that isn't funny. Wing D had the machines without the people. Call lights blinked above half-open doors. Red, red, red. No voices came from inside. I looked back. The elevator doors were still open behind me. Tessa stood on the other side, in Wing C, her face pale under the fluorescent lights. From her side, I saw the C corridor. From mine, I saw Wing D. The same elevator held both. "Don't let those doors close," she said. I stepped back. The doors stayed open. Then a voice came from down the hall. "Hello?" An old man's voice, polite, embarrassed. "Is someone there?" Tessa closed her eyes for half a second, like she was asking some tired part of herself not to be responsible. Then she said, "We check the patient, then we leave." Room D214 was the third door on the right. My watch said 114. When we stepped out of the elevator, it still said 114. When we reached the room, even though the walk felt longer than the hallway should have allowed, the patient was sitting on the floor beside the bed, one hand on the rail, the other in his lap. He wore a hospital gown and a yellow fall risk sock. He did not look hurt. He looked like someone waiting for a late bus. His door screen read, "Calder, Edwin, D214, fall risk." Tessa went to him first. Training beat fear. She crouched beside him, checked his head, his wrist, his breathing, asked the small, practical questions nurses ask before panic has permission. "Mr. Calder, did you hit your head?" "No, ma'am." "Any pain?" "Only pride." "When did you fall?" He looked past her at me. "You're early," he said. Tessa did not turn around. "Early for what?" "They said security wouldn't come until after the fall." "I'm security," I said. My voice sounded too loud in the room. Mr. Caldwell nodded. "I know. Marcus Vale." I hadn't introduced myself. Tessa saw my face and looked down at his wristband. I watched her read it. Her mouth tightened. She took the band gently and angled it toward the light. Name, Edwin Calder. Admit date, Wednesday, midnight 42. Attending unit, D214. Fall event, Wednesday, 1:21. Security response, Marcus Vale, 1:28. I checked my watch. Tuesday, 1:16 a.m. The clock above Mr. Calder's head read 1:16. For 1 second, I was relieved by that. I don't know why. Maybe because the clock agreed with me. An agreement had started to feel rare. Then the minute hand twitched backward. Not far, just one small, dry click. The clock read 1:15. Tessa saw it too. Mr. Calder said, "They told me not to worry if time corrected itself." "Who told you that?" I asked. I looked toward the doorway. The woman from Risk. Tessa helped him into the bed. She was careful and controlled, but I could see the tremor in her jaw. "Marcus," she said quietly, "take a picture of the band and the chart." I did. The phone camera flashed before I could touch the button. I looked at the saved image. It was there, clear. Mr. Calder's wristband, tomorrow's date, my name. The file timestamp read Wednesday, 1:28 a.m. The room clock clicked forward, 1:16. A printer started at the nurse's station. Tessa and I both turned toward the sound. Mr. Calder said, "You shouldn't let it finish." Tessa went first. A single sheet slid from the printer behind the empty nurse's station. The header read, "Incident Reconciliation Form." Under location, it said D214. Under patient, it said Edwin Calder. Under witnesses, 2 lines waited for signatures. Clinical witness, Tessa Nori. Security witness, Marcus Vale. At the bottom was a red stamp. Not ink exactly, more like toner too dark to be black. Pending until observed. Tessa didn't touch the paper. "Elevator," she said. We left Mr. Calder sitting upright in bed. I hated that. I still hate that. But he looked less frightened than we did. As we passed the next room, a call light turned on. Then another, then another. Red lights blinked down the hall in sequence, each one soft and patient. On the door screens, names appeared. Some I did not recognize. One I did. Nuri, Tessa, D218. Observation. Clinical witness, pending. Tessa stopped walking. I put a hand on her shoulder without thinking. She didn't pull away. "That's not me," she said. "No." "That's not me." "No," I said again, because there was nothing else useful. The elevator doors were still open. Beyond them, Wing C waited like a photograph of a safe place. We stepped through together. The doors closed behind us. The panel above elevator 4 went blank. Tessa walked straight to the nurse's station on Wing C and opened the patient system. Her hands were steady now, in the way hands get steady when the mind behind them has stopped accepting optional fear. No Edwin Calder, no Wing D, no fall alarm, no incident reconciliation form. Then she pointed at my phone. "Show me the picture." I opened the image. It was corrupted. Gray bars covered most of it. Pixel blocks cut through Mr. Calder's wrist. The chart, the bed rail, only one line remained legible. Security response pending. Tessa swore once, quietly and with precision. We went to the security office. I didn't want to. The security office had cameras, logs, access records. It also had rules. I needed rules badly enough to ignore the feeling that the building had started reading them with me. Nia was gone from dispatch. Her chair was pushed in. Her radio was on the desk. A half-finished bottle of water sat beside the keyboard. The dispatch screen showed no active calls. I called her cell. It rang from the drawer. Tessa looked at me. Did she leave? Not without telling me. I pulled up the access log for elevator 4. The log loaded slowly, line by line. 113, Marcus Vale, elevator 4, destination D. 114, Tessa Nori, elevator 4, destination D. 141, Marcus Vale, security office, access granted. 141, Tessa Nori, security office, access granted. Then a line I had not reached yet. 202, Marcus Vale, wing D, exit processed. Current time, 1:41 a.m. Tessa read it twice. That says you leave at 2:02. Yeah. From wing D. Yeah. You're here. I know where I am. She looked at the camera wall. Elevator 4 lobby was empty. Wing C corridor was empty. Wing E waiting room had the same sleeping man under the vending machine reflection. Then one of the unused camera tiles blinked on. It had no label at first, just static. Then a hallway. Wing D. The nurse's station. The printer. The red call lights. A figure stood at the desk with his back to the camera. Dark security jacket. Same height as me. Same clipped badge. Same way of standing with more weight on the left leg. Tessa whispered, "Marcus?" The figure turned his head slightly, not enough to show his face. Then he signed the incident form. The camera feed went black. The security office door opened behind us. A woman in a charcoal coat stepped in as if she had been scheduled. She was maybe 50, maybe 60. Neat gray hair, hospital ID on a blue lanyard, no expression that belonged at 1:46 in the morning. Her badge read, Elise Ward, Risk and Compliance. I had seen her once during orientation. She had explained workplace violence reporting, slip and fall documentation, and why every incident needed 2 witnesses, if at all possible. She looked at Tessa first, then at me. "Mr. Vale," she said, "I need the visitor badge." Tessa stepped between us. "Where is Nia?" Elise folded her hands in front of her. "Dispatch is being corrected." That was not an answer. It was worse because it sounded like one. I said, "What is Wing D?" Elise didn't blink. "There are no patient services assigned under that designation." "That's not what I asked." No, she said. It is the answer I can give. Tessa's voice went flat. We saw a patient. Then you understand why this needs to be contained. A man named Edwin Calder. Elise looked briefly disappointed, like Tessa had used a form number incorrectly. Patient names should not be spoken in unsecured areas. I laughed once. I didn't mean to. Elise turned back to me. Mr. Vale, there are places in this hospital that exist only after an incident has been properly documented. The sentence was so calm that my brain rejected it before the rest of me could. Places don't work that way, I said. Hospitals do. Tessa said, That's insane. Elise's mouth moved almost into a smile. No, it's administrative. I checked my jacket pocket. The visitor badge was gone. On the access monitor, a new active user entry appeared. Marcus Vale, visitor, location D218, status, awaiting witness completion. I was standing in the security office. The monitor disagreed. Tessa saw it and grabbed my arm. Elise said, If you both return now, this can resolve cleanly. What happens if we don't? I asked. For the first time, Elise looked directly at the camera wall instead of us. The Wing D feed was black. D218 appeared on the screen. A staff sleep room, maybe, or an observation room. A narrow bed, a desk, a wall of monitors. On the desk sat the incident form, 2 signature lines. One already signed. Mine. Tessa said, Marcus didn't sign that. Elise said, Not yet. The lights in the security office flickered. Every badge reader on the camera wall flashed red at once. Then Tessa's badge chirped from her pocket. She took it out. The small indicator light on the card itself should not have been able to blink. It was just plastic. It blinked red anyway. The security office door clicked locked. I tried my badge on the reader. Nothing. Tessa tried hers. Nothing. Elise took a slim black override card from inside her coat. It had no name on it, only a red stripe across the bottom. She touched it to the reader. The light went green. Then Elise opened the door. Please do not make the system keep you longer than necessary, she said. Then she stepped into the hall and was gone. At 1:53, the radio on the dispatch desk clicked. My voice said, Security to D218, staff emergency, response pending. Tessa closed her eyes. On the camera feed, D218's monitor wall flickered. One screen showed Elevator 4, one showed Wing C, one showed Tessa and me in the security office, from an angle no camera should have been. One showed tomorrow. I cannot prove that. I know how it sounds. But I saw Tessa wearing the same scrubs, walking alone into Elevator 4. I saw myself at the security desk, filling out a report with both hands shaking. I saw Nia sitting at dispatch with a blank visitor badge clipped to her shirt and no expression at all. And I saw the timestamp in the corner, Wednesday, 1:13 a.m. Tessa opened the lower desk drawer and took out the emergency key ring. Stairwell, she said. Readers are red. Override. Need security and a clinical authorization together. She held up her badge. I held up mine. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she said, "If that room has my name on it, I'm not waiting for tomorrow to find out why." The security office door opened when we touched both badges to the reader at the same time. The corridor outside was colder than it had been. Elevator 4 was waiting. The D button glowed red. We stepped in. This time the elevator moved sideways. I felt it, not in my feet, in my teeth, like the building had shifted around us while pretending the car was still. When the doors opened, Wing D was louder. Call lights blinked faster. The printer at the nurse's station was running without stop. Forms spilled onto the floor, each page sliding over the last one with a soft, dry friction. Incident reconciliation. Unwitnessed fall. Unassigned space. Delayed response. Signature required. Red toner marks across the pages like tape. Tessa didn't look at them. She walked towards D218. The door was at the end of the hall, where the corridor should have met the outside wall. The room number screen showed her name, then mine, then no name at all. I tried the handle. Locked. My badge reader chirped green before I touched my card to it. The door opened. D218 was not a patient room. It was a staffed observation room with no windows and too many screens. Some showed live hospital feeds. Some showed empty rooms. Some showed hallways I didn't recognize. On one screen, Mr. Calder sat alone in D214, looking at the camera as if he knew exactly where it was. On the other, Nia stood in the main lobby, printing visitor badges one after another. On another, Elevator 4 opened tomorrow night, and Tessa stepped inside alone. The desk in the center of the room held the incident packet. My signature was on the security witness line. It looked exactly like my signature. The clinical witness line was blank. Tessa picked up the pen beside it. "Tessa," I said. "I'm not signing." But her hand moved toward the page anyway. Not fast, not possessed. That would have been easier to understand. It moved like every tired professional hand that has ever completed a form because the system would not let them leave until the box was checked. I grabbed her wrist. She gasped like she had been underwater. The intercom crackled. Elise Ward's voice filled the room. "Unwitnessed incident. Create liability." The screens changed one by one to the same image, the incident packet. "Unassigned spaces. Create liability." The door clicked behind us. "Uncorrected records. Create liability." The room clock read 1:59. I remembered the access log. 2:02, Marcus Vale, Wing D, exit, processed. If the log already shows your exit time, leave before that minute arrives. I don't know where the rule came from. Maybe from the badge, maybe from Mr. Calder, maybe from whatever part of my brain still thought like security after the rest had started to fail. But I knew it was true. "Tessa," I said, We have 3 minutes. She looked at the clock. Then, at the emergency route map on the wall, it showed Wing D in clean red lines, nestled exactly where the real building had no room for it. One route was marked Evac D. The door was behind the monitor wall. There was no handle. There were 2 readers. Security. Clinical. Tessa wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, furious at herself for needing to. Together, she said. We touched our badges to the readers. Nothing. The room clock clicked. 2. The incident packet slid across the desk toward her. I slammed my hand down on it. The paper was warm. Under my palm, the red toner lines felt raised, like string pressed under the skin. Tessa looked at the monitor showing Wing C. Supply corridor, she said. What? The old renovation plans. If D was supposed to be connected to C, to E, the evacuation route would have tied it into C supply corridor. There's no door. There wasn't a wing either. She pulled the red marked incident packet from under my hand and tore it in half. Every call light in Wing D went dark. For one breath, the whole ward stopped. Then every door in the hallway opened at once. Not wide, just enough to show darkness inside. The intercom said, Nurse Nori, witness completion is required. Tessa slapped her badge against the clinical reader. I hit mine against security. The hidden door opened inward. Cold air rushed out, smelling like stored linens and dust. We ran. The corridor behind the door did not go down. It did not go up. It ran straight and narrow between unfinished walls with old plastic sheeting stapled over the insulation and red tape hanging from places where inspectors had marked things years before. Behind us, the elevator chimed. The tired, metallic ding. The sound came from inside the corridor with us. Then from ahead. Then behind again. The clock on my phone read 2:01. Tessa was ahead of me by a few steps. A door appeared at the end of the passage. Gray. Metal. No window. No sign. I hit the crash bar. It didn't move. My badge reader blinked red. I could hear paper sliding on the floor behind us. Forms. Hundreds of them. Tessa shoved me aside and pressed her badge to the reader. Red. The phone in my pocket buzzed. A new photo appeared in my gallery. I had not taken it. It showed the visitor badge hanging inside elevator 4. Under destination, it no longer said Wing D. It said exit. Under time, it said 2:02. Tessa saw it. Using the visitor badge, she said, I don't have it. Yes, you do. I checked my pocket again. The badge was there. Warm. I pressed the paper badge against the reader. For a second, nothing happened. Then the barcode turned blacker, like ink appeared through the fibers. The reader chirped green. We fell through the door into Wing C's supply corridor. Behind us, the gray door closed without a sound. A housekeeping cart sat under the normal fluorescent lights. Boxes of gloves, linen bags, a mop bucket. Tessa dropped to one knee, breathing hard. I looked at my phone. 2:01. The minute changed. 2:02. Somewhere down the hall, elevator 4 opened. Empty. My radio clicked. A voice said, "Not mine this time. Exit denied." Then the radio went dead. Whatever the system had promised at 1:41, it had rewritten itself by 2:02. Morning made everything worse. Fear at night can pretend to be the dark. Fear under the fluorescent daylight has to become paperwork. Nia was dispatched at 6:30. She didn't remember leaving the office. She didn't remember the drawer. She didn't remember the visitor badges. Her radio log showed a system test between 1:08 and 2:02. Tessa's badge history was blank for that same window. My access log showed one corrupted entry. 2:02, Marcus Vale, unassigned. Exit denied. The earlier line about my exit being processed was gone, as if it had only been a draft the building rejected. By 8:15, maintenance had taped an out-of-service sign to elevator 4. By 8:40, the sign was gone. At 9:10, I was called into an office I had never noticed before. Beside risk management, Elise Ward sat behind a desk with no family photos, no coffee, no clutter, just a legal pad, a hospital map, and one empty plastic evidence sleeve. She asked for the visitor badge before she asked if I was hurt. I put it on the desk because I wanted it out of my pocket more than I wanted answers. Only then did she seal it in the sleeve. She didn't ask me what happened. She asked if I had retained any patient information. I said no. That was mostly a lie. She asked if Nurse Nori had made any copies. I said no. That was also mostly a lie. She asked if I understood that Bellwether Regional had no Wing D. I looked at the wall behind her. A framed evacuation map showed A, B, C, E, no D. I understand that's what the map says, I told her. Elise capped her pen. You should be careful, Mr. Vale. Maps are not promises. They are liability documents. I quit that afternoon. Tried to, anyway. Human Resources said resignations from security required clearance from risk. When there was an open incident review, they could not tell me what incident. They could not give me any case number. They could not explain why my badge stopped opening the employee entrances 3 days later. Tessa transferred to days, then to another hospital. She texted me once after that, 2 words, still blank. I knew what she meant, her badge record, her missing hour. Mine was not blank anymore. It filled in slowly, a minute here, a minute there, a camera angle. I did not remember a crossing. Elevator 4 appeared in reports I never wrote. 1 week after that night, I came back for what HR called my final clearance appointment. It was raining hard enough that the parking lot looked black and alive. I parked near the staff entrance and sat for a while with both hands on the wheel, listening to the rain tick against the windshield. I told myself there would be a meeting, a signature, maybe a warning, maybe Elise Ward with another sentence that sounded like policy and meant something else. I walked to the staff entrance. My badge didn't work. The reader flashed red. Once, twice. Then the visitor kiosk beside the door woke up. No one had touched it. The screen filled with white light. A badge printed from the slot. I didn't take it at first. The rain tapped against the awning. The automatic doors stayed shut. Behind the glass, the lobby looked normal. A volunteer desk, a sanitizer stand, a wall map that skipped from C to E. The badge slid out further. I took it because some part of me still needed to know what the record said. Name, Marcus Vale. Destination, Wing D. Visit reason, follow-up. Date, tomorrow. Under the barcode was one line in red. Exit, time, pending. The staff door unlocked. Not open, unlocked. There's a difference. I stood outside in the rain until the automatic lights in the lobby clicked off, one section at a time. Somewhere inside Bellwether Regional, elevator 4 chimed. Old, mechanical, tired. Exactly like it had been waiting for me to finish reading.